Many high-yield ETFs sacrifice long-term performance just to chase yield. But there are some exceptions. ETFs that return strong monthly income while staying in the black. Hold on to your seatbelts, folks. This is going to be a good one. If you are an income-focused investor, you are more than aware that finding reliable high-yield monthly ETFs is, well, it's not always that easy. Yields over 10% often come with trade-offs that eat away at your returns. After all, a 10% yield it doesn't feel so great if the ETF is losing 5% in value every year. That's for sure. In an income portfolio, people often say you need to make compromises to keep the income flowing. Well, whether or not that turns out to be the case, I I still think you can do quite a bit with some of the ETF options out there today without that's right, without having to compromise. A sub to the channel is a compromise-free way to enjoy future content. There were quite a few qualifiers for today's list. First, and well, most obvious, is that the ETF had to have a dividend yield of at least 10%. In addition, they needed to have a monthly dividend, so maybe we'll look at the quarterly dividends in another video, but this time it's monthly dividends. History history also came into play as well. I only looked at ETFs with at least a 3-year history, which absolutely eliminated a lot of the new ones, and some of those new ones are pretty darn good. In regard to performance, they all had to have had a positive return on the 3-year time frame before we add in the dividends. For the 1-year return, I was a little less strict. Markets have been choppy this year, but most of these ETFs, they're still holding positive ground. Okay, today's list was sorted as usual by their 1-year total return. So without any further ado, let's do this. Kicking off our list in the number 5 position, we've got the Hamilton Enhanced US Covered Call ETF, and they've got a ticker of HYLD. This ETF is a actively managed mix of US equity covered call ETFs. They, of course, they boost those returns even further using 25% leverage. At the time of recording, their price was coming in at $13.33, and they have an NAV of $13.27. Those assets under management, 876.87 million, and their management expense ratio is a little high, 2.64%. Looking at their dividend, they have a yield of 13.04%. That's a monthly dividend of 14.5 cents per share. Okay, let's look at those returns. Their 3-year return on investment coming in at 2.85%. Factor in the dividends, total return 39.32%. Looking at their 1-year, that return on investment negative 1.04%. So this is that one that I did let squeak by with a negative ROI. Of course, once we do add in the dividends, total return 10.70%. Their 3-year annualized 11.69%. I do like this one for its diversified exposure to US markets. It's really become a convenient one-ticket US income play for sure. In our number 4 position, we've got the Harvest Nasdaq 100 Covered Call ETF, ticker QQCC. This is a pure technology play, and this ETF holds a basket of stocks from, well, as the title suggests, the Nasdaq 100. They also use covered calls to enhance the returns big time. I will add there is a leveraged version of this as well with the ticker of QQCL. Of course, they haven't been around for 3 years, hence they did not make our list today. Looking at their price at the time of recording, it was coming in at $12.11, and they've got an NAV of $12.12. Assets under management, 431.58 million, and their management expense ratio, 0.79%. And any of you who are interested in the trading expense ratio, that's coming in at 0.03%. All right, let's take a look at their dividend. They have a yield of 11.168%. Monthly dividend, 12 cents per share. Okay, let's look at those returns. On their 3-year return on investment, that's coming in at 30.64%. Factor in those dividends, total return 69.78%. On their 1-year, that return on investment 0.25%. When we add in the dividends, we do get a total return of 11.42%. Their 3-year annualized, that's sitting at 19.30%. Tech can be volatile, but that actually does play well with this ETF's income strategy, and it can drive some nice returns when the Nasdaq is on the move. This is definitely one of my favorites for sure. Coming in at our number 3 position, we got the Hamilton Enhanced Multi-Sector Covered Call ETF, ticker of HDIV. Yeah, we've seen this one before. This community favorite, it holds a basket of Canadian sector covered call ETFs, and they then throw some modest 25 leverage on top of that to really boost those payouts. At the time of recording, their price was coming in at $17.89, and they have an NAV of $17.84. Those assets under management, 712.80 million. Management expense ratio, a little on the high side, 2.41%. Looking at their dividend, they have a yield of 11.49%, monthly dividend of 17.2 cents per share. Switching to returns, that 3-year return on investment coming in at 15.72%. Factor in the dividends, total return 50.39%. On that 1-year return on investment, that's coming in at 8.95%. Adding in the dividends, we get a total return of 21.47%. Their 3-year annualized, that's coming in at 14.57%. The Canadian sector has shown quite a bit of resilience this year, and HDIV has definitely been capitalizing on that strength. In our almost top spot at number 2, we've got the Evolve European Bank's Enhanced Yield ETF with a ticker of EBNK. This ETF provides an equity-weighted exposure to some of the biggest banks in Europe. They also use a covered call strategy to provide the potential for some of that extra income, of course. At the time of recording, their price was coming in at $13.62, and they've got an NAV of $13.30. Those assets under management, 50.77 million, and their management fee coming in at 0.60%. Looking at their dividend, they've got a yield of 12.78%, monthly dividend 14.5 cents per share. Looking at their returns on that 3-year return on investment, that's coming in at 72.62%. Adding in the dividends, total return 115.08%. Holy banana bread. I like seeing them triple digits. On their 1-year return on investment, that's coming in at 23.04%. And after we factor in the dividends, total return 38.75%. That one's also not too shabby. Their 3-year annualized, and that looks good too, 29.08%. I'm a fan of geographical diversification, and this ETF is providing that while focusing on a sector that's historically one of the more stable and reliable for income. All right, in our top spot, at number 1, we've got the Purpose Bitcoin Yield ETF, ticker of BTCY. This ETF holds physical Bitcoin, and then they write covered calls on it to produce some income, which can be very inviting for some investors for sure. At the time of recording, their price was coming in at $8.61, and their NAV, $8.62. Those assets under management, 160.80 million, and they've got a management expense ratio of 1.29%. All right, let's take a look. How much yield can those covered calls add to that Bitcoin? Well, 10.34% is the answer. Monthly dividend, 8.5 cents per share. Looking at their returns, their 3-year return on investment, 166.56%. Factor in the dividends, total return, 222.97%. That's awesome. I already used my holy banana bread, but that's awesome. Looking at their 1-year return on investment, that's coming in at 37.10% after you add in the dividends. Total return, 51.24%. 3-year annualized, oh boy, 47.82%. With Bitcoin having gained a lot more respect in the last few years, Bitcoin ETFs are becoming more mainstream. And if you are looking for income at the same time, this could be just what you're looking for. These are some very interesting ETFs, and I love that they're all holding above the line in both yield and performance. I am sure there may be an ETF or two out there that could have easily been on this list, so definitely feel free to drop your favorites below in the comments, as I would love to check out your favorites, and you never know, maybe they'll get featured in another video. If you are interested in any of these ETFs we looked at today, don't forget to put in a whole heaping helping of due diligence before you place any of your hard-earned money on the table. Let's continue that learning journey by checking out this video on ETF launches. And well, as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.